Dry Creek, Arizona, 6:14 p.m. midsummer. The air shimmered with heat and silence. Outside the rusted spur bar, a woman stumbled through the dirt, her face split, her blouse torn. From the shadows, a Harley engine growled once, slow, deliberate. The Hells Angels captain flicked his cigarette and said, "That's enough. Before we start this story, tell us, where in the world are you watching from? Also, please subscribe to the channel. It will help us to bring you more inspiring stories every day." Inside the rusted spur, the air stank of sweat, beer, and cruelty. The kind that festers when small men pretend they're big. Lydia Kane wiped the blood from her lip with the back of her hand. She'd been scrubbing floors since noon, coughing between shifts, praying no one would notice. But Rick Dog Henley, the bar's owner, always noticed. "You think you get to rest just 'cause you're sick?" He spat, slamming a glass near her shoulder. "You ain't sick. You're lazy." Lydia swallowed hard, chest rattling with that dry, hacking cough that never stopped. "Please, Rick, just 5 minutes." He sneered, the grin of a man who liked the begging. Then he grabbed her by the hair, forcing her to her knees. "You get 5 seconds, sweetheart." The bar laughed. Outside, a Harley idled low, the kind of engine that makes the air itself bow. Then the door creaked open. The laughter stopped, and he walked in. The man filled the doorway like a storm rolling in from the desert. Rhett Lawson, captain of the Dry Creek Hells Angels, was built from silence and scars. His cut hung open over a grey tee, dust coating his boots, eyes cold and unreadable beneath the brim of his cap. Rick's smirk faltered. "Bar's closed for you boys," he muttered. Rhett didn't answer. He just looked at Lydia, trembling, hair matted, one cheek purple. He stepped forward, slow, steady. Rick laughed nervously. "What's your problem, Lawson?" Rhett's voice was low, like gravel under a boot. "You hit her?" Rick shrugged. "She's mine to handle." Rhett blinked once, then turned to the bartender. "Glass," he said. The man hesitated, but handed him one. Rhett placed it gently on the counter, then smashed it into Rick's jaw with a crack that echoed across the bar. Rick collapsed, clutching his face. Rhett leaned close, voice calm, dangerous. "She ain't yours," he said. "Not now. Not ever." Lydia didn't move. Couldn't. The entire room stood still. Even the jukebox hummed quieter. Rhett's brothers lingered by the door, silent shadows with leather vests and eyes like wolves. They didn't need to speak. Rick groaned, blood spilling from his mouth as he tried to rise. "You got no right." Rhett kicked his leg out from under him. "I don't need right." He turned to Lydia. "You got someone to call?" She shook her head, barely a whisper. "No one." Rhett nodded once, as if that confirmed what he already knew. He took off his cut, draped it over her shoulders. "Then you do now." Rick spat blood on the floor. "You taking her? You think she'll last a week with your kind?" Rhett paused at the doorway, one hand on the frame. "If she doesn't, it'll still be a better week than any she's had here." Then he looked back at his men. "Get the bike." The ride through Dry Creek was a blur of wind and ache. Lydia clung weakly to Rhett's jacket, her hands trembling against the heat that radiated off his back. The desert stretched endless, sand, scrub, and sky bleeding into one another until the world looked empty. She coughed into her sleeve, the taste of iron sharp in her mouth. Rhett felt it, her body trembling behind him, and throttled down. "You okay back there?" She didn't answer. Couldn't. He pulled over near an abandoned gas station, killed the engine. Lydia slid off the bike and nearly collapsed. Rhett caught her before she hit the dirt. "Easy," he murmured. "You're burning up." Her voice broke. "You should have left me there. I'm sick." "You don't need that." He stared at her, sweat, fear, and something like defiance in her eyes. "Lady," he said softly, "if I left everyone who was broken, I'd be riding alone." Then he lifted her again, carried her toward the light flickering in the clubhouse window. The hellsangels compound sat at the edge of the desert like a fortress made of chrome and dust. A dozen bikes lined the front, all silent now, their riders watching as Rhett carried the unconscious woman inside. Diesel, his second-in-command, whistled low. "You bringing strays home now, boss?" Rhett shot him a look. "She's human. That's all that matters." Inside, he laid Lydia on an old couch. Her pulse fluttered like a trapped bird. He grabbed a wet rag, cleaned the blood from her temple, then tossed his gloves aside. When her eyes opened again, she flinched. Confusion, fear. "You're safe," he said quietly. Her voice cracked. "Why?" Rhett leaned back, lighting a cigarette. Smoke curled upward, soft against the ceiling fan's hum. "'Cause someone should have done it for me once," he said. Outside, thunder rolled across the desert. Inside, for the first time in years, Lydia Kane fell asleep without the sound of fists or shouting. Only engines cooling in the night. By morning, the desert had gone soft and gold. Lydia stirred awake to the hum of bikes outside, the smell of oil and burnt coffee seeping through the cracked windows. Her head pounded, her ribs ached, but she was alive. She blinked, taking in the room, old couch, faded walls, framed photos of the crew through the years. It felt strange, being somewhere no one yelled. Rhett sat at the table across the room, polishing a chain, his jacket slung over the chair. He looked up once, not smiling, but not hard either. "There's water on the counter," he said. "Drink slow. You've been out almost a day." Her throat burned as she sipped. "Where am I?" "Safe," he said simply. She coughed again, the same deep rattle that made her chest quake. Rhett frowned. "You see a doctor?" She shook her head. "Can't afford one." He stood, walked to the door, and called out, "Diesel! Get Doc Alvarez, now!" Then turning back, his voice dropped, softer. "You don't die on me, all right?" The old club doctor showed up an hour later. White hair, tattoos fading into his tanned skin. He examined Lydia with quiet patience, while Rhett paced the floor. "She's got pneumonia," Doc Alvarez finally said, pressing the stethoscope to her back. "Bad one. Must have been festering for weeks." Rhett cursed under his breath. "Can you fix it?" "I can try," the doctor said. "But she's weak. Real weak," Rhett nodded. "Do it," Lydia tried to protest. "You don't need to—" He cut her off with a glance. "Yeah, I do." While the doctor worked, Rhett leaned in the doorway, jaw tight. He'd seen death, too much of it, but this was different. She wasn't a soldier or a brother. She was just someone nobody had helped in time. When Alvarez left, Rhett stayed. Hours passed in silence, the kind that settles heavy when a man's guarding something fragile. Near midnight, Lydia stirred, whispering, "You could have left me." Rhett looked at her, eyes dark in the lamplight. "Yeah," he said. "But I remember what it's like when nobody doesn't. Days turned to a week. The fever broke, slowly, painfully. Rhett kept the clubhouse quiet. No parties, no music, no visitors without reason. His men didn't argue. When their captain's voice went low like that, nobody pushed. Lydia started sitting up, leaning against the couch with blankets wrapped tight. She'd sip soup Diesel brought and watch the sunlight creep through the blinds. One evening she whispered, "Why'd you join them?" Rhett looked up from fixing a carburetor. "The club?" "Yeah, you don't look like you need it." He chuckled once, dry. "Needed something to keep me from falling apart. They didn't ask who I was. Just gave me a bike, a road, and silence." Lydia smiled faintly. "Silence can be kind." "Sometimes," he said. "Other times it's just another word for pain." She met his eyes, the air between them thick and still. "Then maybe you ain't as alone as you think," she said softly. He blinked, slow, surprised. And for the first time since he'd carried her out of that bar, Rhett Lawson smiled. Just once. But real. By the 10th morning, Lydia walked again, slow, barefoot, crossing the dusty floor, while the heat shimmered outside. Rhett caught her near the door. "You trying to melt?" She grinned weakly. Just wanted to feel the sun. He tossed her his sunglasses. Then feel it right. They sat on the porch side by side. The desert stretched for miles, endless, lonely, beautiful. You ever gonna tell me what happened to you? He asked. She stared at the horizon, voice small. I worked at that bar 3 years. They said it was good money if you kept quiet. First it was long shifts, then it was favors, then it was... Bahane. Rhett's jaw tightened. That man, Rick, he ever touch you? She looked down. That was answer enough. He nodded slowly, something dark flickering in his eyes. Good. I just needed to know how far to bury him. She turned to him, startled. You'd kill him? He didn't look at her. No, but I'll make sure he remembers her name. That night Rhett rode. The moon hung pale over the desert, casting silver across the sand. His Harley's engine echoed through the canyon like thunder trapped in steel. He didn't tell anyone where he was going. Didn't have to. Diesel just nodded when he left. Some debts didn't need explaining. The rusted spur glowed faint at the edge of town, neon flickering over cracked glass. Rick was there, of course, always was. When Rhett walked in, conversation died. He dropped his gloves on the bar. Rick froze mid-pour. What, you come to finish me? Rhett leaned close. Nah, that'd be too kind. He grabbed Rick's hand, hard enough to make bones creak. You touch another woman again, you'll wish I did. Rick's face turned white. Rhett released him, then walked to the door. By the way, he said, pausing under the neon hum, her name's Lydia, remember it. Then he kicked the door open, walked into the desert, and left silence behind, the kind that never really leaves a man like that. 2 days after the bar visit, Rhett came back bruised and silent. He didn't talk about what happened, and Lydia didn't ask. But that night, when he pulled off his gloves, she saw the split skin across his knuckles. You fought, she whispered. He shrugged. Just reminded a man where his hands don't belong. She nodded slowly, her chest tight. Later, she found him sitting outside, a beer in one hand, cigarette in the other, staring out across the dark desert, like it owed him answers. She stepped out quietly, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders. You don't have to keep carrying other people's pain, she said softly. He exhaled, smoke curling like ghosts between them. Someone's gotta... I'm used to it. Lydia sat beside him. You ever think maybe that's what's killing you? He looked at her, long, steady, the kind of look that strips a man bare. Every damn day, he said. But for once, when he said it, he didn't sound alone. By late August, Lydia could stand on her own again. Her color had returned, though her cough still haunted the mornings. She cooked breakfast now. Eggs and biscuits on the old griddle. The men, rough as they were, had learned to soften their voices when she passed. Diesel leaned toward Rhett one morning, smirking. You sure she ain't running this place now? Rhett didn't look up from his coffee. Maybe that's the point. When Lydia stepped outside, the sun hit her face and she smiled. Small, tired, but real. She spotted Rhett tinkering with a bike near the gate. That one yours? She asked. He nodded. Was my brother's, before he didn't make it back from Fallujah. Her breath hitched. I'm sorry. Don't be, he said. He taught me how to ride. Guess that means he's still here somehow. Lydia ran a hand along the chrome tank, the paint flaking like old memories. You ever think about leaving? Starting over, he chuckled low. Every time I start the engine. That night a storm rolled over the desert, a rare, violent thing. Rain hit the tin roof hard, lightning flashing against the horizon. Lydia sat by the window, watching the sky split open, while Rhett repaired a chain under the dim light. You ever been scared? She asked. He didn't glance up. All the time. Of what? He set the chain down, rubbed his hands over his face. That I'll always be the man I was before this patch, she frowned. What man was that? He'd looked at her then, eyes heavy with something old and unspoken. The one who buried his wife. Lydia froze. Rhett's voice dropped, soft, gravel-thin. Cancer took her 6 years ago. Couldn't save her. Couldn't even look at her near the end. Rode out one night and never came back. Silence filled the room. Only the rain spoke. Then Lydia whispered, "You didn't run from her. Rhett, you ran from the hurt." He stared at her, and in that flickering light, something broke. Not his strength, but his armor. For a while they didn't speak. Not because there was nothing to say, but because too much had already been said in silence. By dawn, the storm had cleared, leaving the desert smelling like metal and forgiveness. Rhett brewed coffee while Lydia patched the torn club flag hanging by the window. Her stitches were uneven but careful, every thread like an apology to the world. "You ever think about tomorrow?" she asked. He smiled faintly. "Only when I'm lucky enough to get one." Lydia turned, eyes glinting with quiet defiance. "Then maybe it's time you stop surviving and start living." He looked up at her, really looked, this fragile woman who had walked through hell and still found softness in her voice. "Guess you're teaching me how," he said. She grinned. "Guess I am." Outside, the sun broke clean through the clouds, scattering gold over the red dust. For once, the clubhouse didn't feel like a shelter. It felt like home. The next week, trouble found them, as it always does. A black pickup rolled into Dry Creek, dust trailing behind like smoke. Inside sat Rick, face swollen, one eye purple, and beside him, 2 men Lydia didn't recognize. Ex-bikers. Mean ones. Rhett saw them from the porch, jaw tightening. He turned to Diesel. "Get the boys ready." Lydia came running from inside. "Rhett, don't." He glanced back. "He came looking for you." "I know," she said. "That's why you can't give him the fight he wants." He stepped closer, eyes burning low. "Sometimes fighting is the only language scum understand." Lydia grabbed his hand. "And sometimes it's what keeps you from ever hearing anything else." The men climbed out of the truck, shouting threats. Rhett looked down at her fingers gripping his, small, shaking, but fierce. He exhaled. "All right, no fight." Then he turned to Diesel. "But if they touch her, not one of them walks away." The dust swirled. The storm hadn't passed after all. It had just learned her name. The men from the pickup spread across the yard, eyes hard, hands twitching near their belts. Rick smirked. "Told you Lawson ain't done with her." Rhett stepped forward slowly, palms open. "You already were," Rick laughed. "She owes me." Lydia's voice trembled, but she stood tall. "I don't owe you a damn thing." Rick started toward her, but Rhett moved faster, one hand pressing him back by the chest. "Try it," Rhett said, calm as gunmetal. Diesel and the boys appeared behind him, vests gleaming in the sun. The ex-bikers hesitated. They'd seen war. They knew when they were outnumbered. Rick spat at the ground. "You think she's worth all this?" Rhett looked at Lydia, the wind catching her hair, dust rising around her like smoke. "Yeah," he said. "Every bit of it." The men backed away, muttering curses. The truck tires spit gravel as they fled into the desert. Only when the sound faded did Rhett breathe again. Slow, steady, alive. That night quiet hung heavy. The club had celebrated, but Rhett stayed outside, staring at the horizon where the taillights had disappeared. Lydia joined him, barefoot, wrapped in his old denim jacket. "You didn't have to protect me." He shook his head. "You're wrong." "I did." She studied him a long moment. "You ever get tired of being everyone's shield?" He smiled faintly. "You ever get tired of thinking nobody will stand for you?" Their eyes met, equal weight, equal hurt. She moved closer, her voice barely a whisper. "Thank you." He turned toward her. "Don't thank me. Just keep living. That's how you pay it back." The wind carried the scent of gasoline and sage. She reached out, resting her hand over his heart. "You still think you can't save people?" He closed his eyes, her palm warm through his shirt. "Maybe not all, but I saved one. And for the first time in years, That was enough. Autumn rolled in, dry and quiet. Lydia began cooking for the crew. Meat pies, chili, coffee that didn't taste like rust. They teased her, but they never left a crumb. Rhett watched her laugh again, a sound that softened every hard corner in that place. But one morning the cough came back harder. Blood flecked her sleeve. She hid it fast, but Rhett saw. "Lid?" he asked. She forced a smile. "Just dust." He didn't buy it. That night, he drove her an hour north to a clinic run by an old vet nurse. The nurse's face turned solemn after the x-rays. "It's bad, Rhett, real bad." Rhett clenched his fists. "How long?" "With rest and treatment, months. Without it, weeks." He nodded once, silent. When they got back, Lydia sat on the porch, staring at the stars. "Guess I'm broken again," she whispered. Rhett crouched beside her. "Nah, just means you've been fighting too long without backup." The following days blurred. Medicine, long rides to town, quiet nights under flickering light. The crew took shifts watching her. Even Diesel learned to make soup. But Rhett never left her side. When dusk she woke to find him asleep in the chair, head bowed, hand still holding hers. She whispered, "Rhett." He stirred. "Yeah? I don't want to die scared." He looked at her, eyes raw, voice rough. "Then you won't, not while I'm here." She smiled weakly. "You make it sound like a promise." "It is." She exhaled, slow and peaceful. "Then let me see the desert again tomorrow." So he did. He strapped her to the back of his Harley, blanket wrapped tight, engine growling low. They rode until the horizon bled orange and gold. She leaned her head against his back. "It's beautiful," she said. Rhett's throat tightened. "Yeah," he whispered. "It finally is. Spring came early that year. Wildflowers climbed through the cracks of Dry Creek's roads, and Lydia's laughter lingered in the clubhouse air even after she was gone. Her scarf still hung on Rhett's handlebars, faded, dust-stained, sacred. Every evening he rode out to the ridge, where the desert met the dying sun, and sat there until the light went. Diesel once asked, "You ever gonna stop riding out there, boss?" Rhett smiled faintly. "When she stops waiting on me." He started the engine, low, steady, endless. As he rode into the blaze of twilight, the scarf fluttered behind him like a banner of mercy. Because for once, the captain who saved everyone else had learned what it meant to be saved. Some souls aren't rescued. They're remembered in every mile you ride. If this story moved you, if you believe redemption can roar louder than pain, hit that like button, subscribe, and keep your engine running with us. This is Biker Stories, where loyalty rides longer than life.